Hi, my name is Alan, and I'm the founder and president of Thank You for Your Kindness. Question: do you believe that one act of kindness can really make a difference? Years ago, I suffered a sudden and traumatic loss. I was entombed in grief and went through an incredibly difficult time in my life. Because of the decisions I made, I wound up homeless and living on the streets. One day, I woke up and decided to turn my life around, but I had already dug myself such a deep hole I didn't know if I would ever find a way out. I had almost given up hope when one day a woman saw me, brought me some food, and spent about an hour getting to know me. Her name was Paula. A few days later, she came back, picked me up, and took me to a motel where she put me up for nearly 3 months. In that time, she bought me new clothes, filled my fridge with nutritious food, helped me find a job, and provided the comprehensive, sustained support I needed to transform my life. And that's exactly what I did. I got a job, found stable housing, earned my associate's degree, and this past year founded our nonprofit based on the phrase I kept repeating to Paula over and over again: thank you for your kindness. Together, we envision a world where kindness and service transform lives and communities, and we make it our mission to create a lasting impact on the lives of those in need. We have numerous initiatives in development, but it's our flagship program, Project One by One, that I want to share with you today. So let's return to the beginning of my story for a moment. Unfortunately, it's not unique. According to HUD, last year there were over three-quarters of a million people identified as either unhoused or unsheltered, the largest number ever reported. In Nashville, Tennessee, there were over 2,725 of which were unsheltered. That marks a 23% increase over the prior year. Many of these are living in tents and encampments, on the streets, or in vehicles, and it should be noted that these numbers are likely underreported because of difficulties reaching certain areas or accounting for all types of homelessness. Of those numbers in Nashville, 59% were experiencing chronic homelessness. Homelessness carries with it a huge cost and is both a humanitarian and financial crisis. I personally care more about the human cost, but the financial cost does impact each and every one of us also. Let's take a look at the numbers first. Simply put, the cost to society is far greater to leave someone unsheltered than it is to provide supportive services. Depending on where you are in the country, the cost per homeless person can range from $35,000 to $75,000, and in some places is estimated to be above $100,000 per person. This comes in many forms, from an increased reliance on emergency and law enforcement services to public works funding burdens that may lead to increased taxes or leave shortages for much other needed services to be funded. On the flip side, by investing a much smaller amount in providing supportive services, we can help stabilize individuals and bring that per person cost down, allowing resources to be allocated for other needs. I don't like leading with money over people, but I ordered this slide like this intentionally to let this one statistic sink in. Individuals experiencing chronic homelessness have a life expectancy of nearly 20 years shorter than the general population. 20 years. Homelessness is an incredibly complex issue. Well, I'll caveat that by saying in our current system it's a complex issue. We'll talk more about that later. There are so many factors that can lead someone to becoming homeless, and so many more that act to keep them there. Mental health and trauma, substance use and addiction, limited income and housing costs, fragmented services, legal and policy barriers, and isolation and lack of support. Each barrier is a challenge, but we believe it's the last one, the lack of support, that is the common thread that connects them all and ultimately presents the biggest obstacle for progress. Every day there are so many others like myself who are ready to fix their broken lives, but they don't have a Paula. So let's talk about the services that are currently out there. There are some wonderful organizations out there that tend to the masses, and I am grateful for what they do. Their help, though, is often limited, and the piecemeal support people receive lacks a cohesive strategy, amounting to nothing more than a band-aid on a bigger wound. People need more than services, they need support. It's time for a real solution. Project One by One. Project One by One will model what Paula did for me for others by providing individualized, comprehensive, sustained, and holistic support to individuals to help them overcome barriers as they actively work to transition from the streets to stability. I'll explain the program in more detail in a moment, but first let's touch on a few things. The program's cost is forecast to be $10,000 per participant, which may seem like a lot until you factor in a nearly 50% reduction in cash expenditures from in-kind donations of goods and services. Now, we're not going to personally be providing everything a person needs to fix their circumstances for this price, But what we are going to be doing is providing them the dedicated one-on-one support we just talked about a moment ago. So let's talk about the program. Dedicated case management will be the cornerstone of the program, which will be tailored to the individual needs and readiness of the participant and move through 3 phases from assessing those needs to personal development and finally shifting from intensive guidance to self-sufficiency. The other key to success will be the participants themselves. True change must begin with individual readiness, and to ensure the assistance we're providing is focused properly, we'll partner with existing agencies to identify those who are committed to rebuilding their lives. We might not end homelessness, but for those who are ready to overcome it, we'll be there to help, one by one. So let's dive a bit deeper into the program's components. We've established that our target population is individuals experiencing homelessness. We'll talk more about the geographic locations we'll be serving in a moment, but the program will begin here in Nashville-Davidson County. And while I mentioned there will be a priority for those demonstrating readiness, it's equally important that we design a pathway into the program, especially for those still struggling with substance use issues, so that they too can reach a place where the program will benefit them. Our core services and activities will consist of 3 things: street-based outreach and referral partnerships, one-on-one mentorship, again, the key to success, and intensive case management. We'll deliver these services in a hybrid form, both in person as well as meeting people where they are to overcome the barrier that exists with regard to transportation and all of the other complications that come with living on the street. This is where I want to share 2 of our visions we have for the program. A Project One by One app that will not only act as a consolidated resource for people to find help, meals, showers, healthcare, etc., and not just as an overwhelming list, but one that filters and sorts to what's currently available and where with a mapping feature, but also allows for progress tracking, goal setting, document storage, and a communication hub between all parties, and a mobile office unit so that we can again meet people where they are and take services to them. We're currently exploring these options. As far as people needs and staffing, they will change and grow over the course of the program. And on the next slide, we'll look at the phases of the proposed rollout and expansion of the program. But over the first 3 phases, we'll need to fill potential positions like executive director, program coordinator, clinical consultant, etc. However, the most important roles that we need to fill will be our volunteers and mentors, who will be the backbone of the program, but not only for the program, but also for the events, drives, and fundraising, as well as board and advisory positions we have. So this is the part I enjoy the most, the bold vision. And it is bold, but it is achievable. If you've ever listened to Roseanne Haggerty talk, one of the leading voices and figures in combating homelessness, she talks about the importance of good processes over good programs, and we have taken her wisdom to heart. So more than a program, we're designing a process, and we envision a 6-phased approach to rolling it out and its eventual scaling and replication. Phase 1 will be the pre-pilot with a small cohort where we begin to test our stability planning and mentorship model. Phase 2 will be the actual pilot, expanding to 10 participants. Phase 3 is where we'll begin to scale locally, expanding the number of participants in Nashville-Davidson County and building on prior successes. Phase 4 will occur once we've evaluated our processes and established measured success, at which point we'll expand regionally to another Tennessee city. Once we're certain that we've established a solid model and processes that will then translate to other geographic areas, we'll move to Phase 5, which will entail replicating the program in another state. Our current goal is Florida. And finally, once we're able to demonstrate our processes and develop a training and curriculum that knows no borders, we'll move on to Phase 6, national expansion. The most important thing to note is that at every step of the way, emphasis will always be given to quality over quantity, and we will adjust our timeline accordingly. Now, before we turn to the business and funding portion, I want to talk about the role of advocacy. It is central to the mission of both TY4YK and Project One by One. With mine and others' lived experience in leadership positions, as well as our hands-on work with individuals on the street, we're able to identify gaps not only to help shape our program and meet their needs, but also to advocate for change to remove barriers and pave the way for success. Some of our focus areas include opposing policies that criminalize homelessness, supporting evidence-based housing strategies, elevating lived experience in policymaking, improving access to mental and behavioral health services, addressing systemic gaps identified through casework, and strengthening city, state, and federal collaboration. But remember earlier when I mentioned in our current system homelessness is a complex issue? That is where we as a board have consulted in-depth research and gone through thoughtful deliberation, analysis, and reflection to arrive at a united position on several topics: a universal basic income, a significant federal minimum wage, and housing as a basic human right. We believe that these three topics, if addressed and adopted by our society, would act to effectively eliminate the homeless epidemic. There are, of course, other facets to the issue that need to be addressed, but we believe that if we're going to live in a world where it requires money to survive, then the playing field should be leveled for everyone to do so. By meeting the basic income needs for a person to afford shelter and food with a UBI, in conjunction with recognizing housing as a basic human right, one of the largest barriers is removed. Then, to take someone past the point of surviving and allowing them to thrive, it's going to take paying them, and not just them, but everyone in this country, an appropriate wage to do so. This could be an entire presentation in itself, but suffice to say that we have a passion for the advocacy that is needed to effect meaningful change in the system that is so incredibly broken. So, in order to act responsibly as an organization and never jeopardize our core mission, we've taken the 501H election, but also have not ruled out at a point in the future when we may form a sister 501c4 organization to form a strong front for lobbying and advocacy on these and other important issues, including the increasing criminalization of homelessness. Now, let's talk business. As a nonprofit, we're in a constant state of duality, measuring success by meeting the double bottom line of achieving social impact and ensuring financial stability. We have two audiences to reach: those we seek to support and those we seek as supporters. And we have two beneficiaries of our services: those we support as well as society as a whole. Understanding this, we're prepared with a comprehensive business plan to meet both bottom lines and serve both markets in a unique and meaningful way. We've developed a solid plan for sustainability with diversified revenue streams. Here you'll see a high-level overview of some of them. They include corporate sponsors and partnerships, individual donations, grants and foundations, crypto donations, faith-based support, earned income, events and campaigns, in-kind goods and services, as well as a strategy for long-term investment to protect and grow assets. We're preparing to launch multiple fundraising campaigns and have well-curated lists of potential donors, sponsors, and partnership opportunities. One of the most exciting things we're close to launching is our podcast, which will serve as the main conduit for spreading our message, sharing our mission, and engaging society in an authentic and meaningful dialogue on important topics. So the big picture. We have a bold vision, and we're not afraid to say it. That said, I think it's important to address a common question. Why don't you just work with an existing nonprofit? Well, we certainly plan on working with many other organizations to help those we serve get connected with all of the resources they need to succeed. And while we're grateful for what they do, Project One by One requires a new nonprofit structure in order to operate without the constraints of existing systems. Before we go, I want to mention something. These times we're living in are troublesome. There's a lot of reasons one could find to be pessimistic about the current state of things as well as the future. But in today's climate of cultural division, there's an incredible opportunity to offer something different, something meaningful, relatable, and unifying. By demonstrating that small personal acts of support can scale into lasting change, we can inspire communities and build trust in a world hungry for connection and purpose. And I believe one of our strongest points as a new organization is our humility. We don't claim to have all the answers. What we do know to be the truth, though, is what was said earlier. People don't just need services, they need support. So we're looking to build a coalition of other good, wise, and caring people who not only have monetary donations to give, but also their time, expertise, and services that will help us achieve our mission and make a truly meaningful impact on the hearts and lives of those in need. Thank you so much for your time, and most importantly, thank you for your kindness.